This is the 5th edition of the history of Alice Springs through landmarks and street names. It all started with a chance remark from Elva Hayes asking me who Adamson was. They'd just moved to Adamson Avenue in 1976. This was a new street in the Gillen area, and I'd never heard of Adamson. I went to school in England. We'd never got up. We started with the Bronze Age and so on, and the Vikings, and we only got up to the Crusades when I left school. So I'd never heard of the telegraph line or anything. And anyway, I was working at the Advocate. I just started there as a journo with Bob Watt and Erwin Klander, and I was the junior. I went down to the annals of the Advocate as the oldest cadet junior, because I was in my 50s. Anyway, we had to write features each of us had to do one every 3 weeks. And I thought if I could find out about the streets, it would be a fascinating feature to do. And the other two, of course, were thrilled because they thought I could do them all the time. They wouldn't have to do them. No one knew who the streets were named after, and I was doing shorthand classes, and the teacher said she had worked at the town council and there was a book in the office there, so along I went, and Trevor Jenkinson was the town clerk, and asked him if I could borrow it for a week. And this was wonderful, but there were only 2 lines about each person, and for some, even Smith Street, there was no initial, nothing, just a blank. And of course every Smith in town said that was named after their grandfather, but it turned out it was Churchill Smith who, with Bagot, came up to start Andulia Station at the end of 1872. And so as they came up, they also came up with Gilbert, who was going to start Owen Springs. And as they came up, they met other people, and they met Todd, who'd finished the line and was checking on all these settlements and the line, the stations, the repeater stations, as he went back. And they also were passed by Warburton and Goss and Giles, who were coming up, because once the telegraph line was there was a sort of safety line track for the explorers and people coming up knew there'd be someone every 180 or 200 miles where the repeater was. Anyway, so these were all in the street names, and so I wrote the features, and then the Advocate put them in a little book in 1980 with the history of Advocate, which Bob Watt had written previously and didn't know where to put it, so he put it in the book. Well, that book sold out, and they were going to reprint, but they were meanwhile grading Larapinta and the eastern New Saturday area. And so Bob Watt said if I got those street names and wrote them up, they would put them in a book with the old book. And this was really good. I was living in Adelaide as it happened, and so that was really convenient because Helen Burns was there, who was Pastor Albrecht's daughter, who married Dudley Burns, and so she could help me with all these new Hermansburg streets, which were in the new Larapinta area, named after shepherds and ministers and different people associated with Hermansburg. So it was wonderful. And also the Kennetts were there, so they were able to help me with Kennett Street and the terrible drama story of their little girls getting diphtheria. And Rex Batterby's daughter was there, Gail Batterby, so she was able to help me with the Rex and the Albert Namatjira story and Drive and Rubina. There's a Rubina Street after Albert's wife. So it was really very convenient. Well, when the end of the year I came back to look after my grandchildren while my son and daughter-in-law went away for a holiday, and they were going to get them all printed then with the ones in the old book, but in the meantime the Advocate had been taken over by Murdoch Press in Darwin. Darwin said it wouldn't be economical, and Bob got the quote, and I was devastated. I didn't want all that work just to be wasted and sit in a drawer. So I got the copyright from them and printed the next book, the Blue Book, myself, and that's the street sign from outside what is now 50 Plus, which had street names. And Myrtle Noske, my aunt by marriage, said she would design the cover, and so she thought I was going around trying pictures of the town, and the sun was shining, so I had to bend down, and I got all those street signs on an angle, and she thought it was very artistic with the branch behind them. So then I had to find street names with the exact number of letters of those place names so that she wouldn't have to alter the length of the arm, because she said that was just so artistic. So we did that, and that was printed within the 3,000 copies. Well, that sold out, and meanwhile there were more streets, and those two areas were being extended, so that was much bigger. And then the fourth edition was printed in 2005, and that had 40 extra streets. And that was the new extension of the Heenan Road, Ross River Highway out there, and other extensions. And so then we seemed to be at full stop, and I got those 3 streets off opposite in Stirling Heights. They went in that book, and there are only the 2 new ones off Albrecht Drive, of T Crescent and Wright Place. And the bookshops always kept saying there was no book on Alice Springs history, and would I reprint. So everything is just getting so much more expensive, and I'm very conscious of keeping the price down so that people will buy it. And I could just put those 2 streets underneath Ewell and Zeal on page 206. So we worked that out. It was about 200 words each. And so we redid, Pauline Clack did all the artwork. She's the most wonderful graphic artist. And she also has the same fonts as they do at the Hyde Park Press. So she was able to print the pages out for me, and then they could slot them in straight away. And we were able to get those streets done. And I particularly didn't want to go, there wasn't a blank page at the back, but I didn't want to go on to the next page because I've got that lovely little picture Ted Hayes gave me of the pony with about 7 or 9 children sitting on it. And if that went over the page, you wouldn't really notice it. So we're able to squash the T Crescent and Wright Place onto page 206.